Hello and welcome to this edition of Just a Few. In these episodes, I provide a response to a question that was submitted to me requiring some sort of response from the Bible. My name is Patrick Antoine. Thank you for joining me once again. May the blessing of God be upon you. Today's question comes from an obscure practice found in the Old Testament that someone wants to have some clarification on. The question is, what was an Avenger of Blood? So maybe you have heard that expression before, you've read about it in the Old Testament, and you too might have wondered what exactly was that person and why was that person called such. So let me provide a response to that. There are two main passages in which you'll find that expression, although you'll find it again in the book of Joshua later on, but mainly in the book of Numbers, chapter 35, and the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19, are where you find those passages. So if you're another person accustomed reading the Old Testament, you may not have come across that expression before. So let me read a passage from Numbers 35 for you. It says, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall appoint cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the manslayer who kills any person accidentally may flee there. They shall be cities of refuge for you from the avenger, that the manslayer may not die until he stands before the congregation in judgment." So what's happening there? God told Moses to instruct the children of Israel that when they got into Canaan, they were supposed to set aside some cities in which the priests and Levites would be dwelling. And those cities were supposed to provide refuge for certain people, anyone who is fleeing from someone who's called the Avenger of Blood. The Avenger is called in this passage I just read here. So let me share some things about that practice. Most ancient cultures, not just ancient Hebrew or Jewish cultures, but most ancient cultures, and even today in some places, function on the basis of shame as opposed to honor. In some cultures today, you may hear about honor killings. It's still practiced in some parts of the world today. And they believe that a person's actions either brought shame or honor upon himself, or his family, his tribe or clan, or even his nation. When you read the story of the prodigal son, the actions of the son who went off, took what is, demanded what was his and went off and wasted it, was a shameful series of actions. And it brought dishonor upon the family. So keep in mind, the cultures function with shame and honor as guiding principles. When a member of a family or clan was killed by someone else, someone in that family had to uphold the honor of the family and the person who died by avenging the murder of that person. Without that, the family is left with a sort of shame. It's almost as if a person comes and kills, and they're not just killing, maybe even sexually violates a member of a family. They have brought shame and disgrace and dishonor upon that family. Somebody had to uphold the honor of the dead person by avenging the one who killed that person. That was one way of restoring honor in that culture. It may seem a bit strange to us, but today we cry out for justice. If someone kills one of our loved ones, we cry out for justice because you say that person had no right to die that way. And you want the courts to prosecute that person, and we call for the death penalty and so on. Well, it's the same thing, because we believe we want to honor the memory and the life of that person by seeking justice for them. The person from the family of the deceased who decides to go after the one who committed the murder, it was called an Avenger of Blood. And I said it was practiced in many cultures. Unfortunately, the practice had a tendency to get out of hand and became almost like it had the potential to becoming like the Wild Wild West. As soon as you suspect someone may have killed your loved one, you go after that person, and you may go after the wrong person, or you may take matters beyond what is necessary. Maybe the person killed one member of your family and you decide to wipe out the whole village, saying you are the Avenger of Blood. I grew up looking at some Chinese films, and those films with martial arts and so, and you see that same theme in a lot of those films. Someone kills someone else, and then the person's son may have been a baby at the time, and the baby grows up now and learns a special martial arts technique, and he has to go now and avenge his father's death against that person who killed him. It was in most ancient cultures. That person was called an Avenger of Blood. God told the children of Israel to build cities on either side of the Jordan to allow a person whom the Avenger of Blood is coming after, who may not have killed a person intentionally, to find a place of refuge until the elders of the city had a chance to determine if that person really supposed to die, if they really killed your loved one or not. So the person had to flee to one of those cities of refuge or safety where the priest would offer them protection. And that's why you had a law like if an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You don't want a case where a person may have killed someone and you decide to wipe out the entire family. That's not an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. There must be a balance. The punishment must suit the crime. So in those days, there was nothing like a police force or police service in Israel. There was just the army that protected from external aggressors, and then you had the elders. And so the elders were supposed to allow protection of this person who is fleeing from the Avenger of Blood until a determination could have been made if the person was really guilty of murder, because not all homicides are classified as murders. Some could be an unintentional killing, some could be manslaughter, some could be self-defense. And so that was what an Avenger of Blood was, a person who was coming after a person who may have killed a loved one to restore the honor of the person who was killed. And the cities of refuge were supposed to be places where the person who was fleeing could go and find safety until it was determined that this person really did intentionally and premeditatedly kill someone, and then God allowed for the Avenger of Blood to be the first one to execute that person as capital punishment for murder. So that's what Numbers chapter 35 verse 19 tells us. The Avenger of Blood himself shall put the murderer to death if it is determined this person was a premeditated murderer. When he meets him, he shall put him to death. A person deemed not guilty of premeditated murder by the elders was protected in those cities until the death of the high priest. That's as much as I could tell you in these few minutes. Again, let me summarize. The Avenger of Blood was any person who sought to restore the honor of the family of someone who was killed by another person by taking vengeance against that person. My name is Patrick Antwine. Hope that brief explanation helps you. You can read the passages I mentioned to you to get some more understanding of it. If you have a question and you'd like me to provide a response, please use the email address on the screen and I'll try to respond as quickly as I can. Until the next time, grace and peace be multiplied to you from the Jesus Christ who is our refuge.